welcome everybody. And I'm just trying to organize myself here. The title of my talk is Leading Oneself to Lead Others, Learning to Bring Out the Best in Ourselves and Others. And I think I'll just sort of, let me get to the, yeah, okay. So basically in this particular session, we want to focus on this notion that in order to better lead others and better lead teams, we need to be able to better manage and lead oneself. And there's no way in which we can lead others better without taking a leadership role with ourselves. I want to emphasize that this is just my personal take on this issue. There's never a right answer. So in a way, it's a very sort of a personal rambling of sorts. So there is no real, hard cut right and wrong answer in this. I do want to, however, draw on the evidence and well-known statements from leaders and thinkers. So some of the big names that I will be drawing upon while doing this are people like Chris Argyris, Peter Drucker, and then the Hafez and Lindsay, and Daniel Goleman, these types of people. There will be two rounds, as mentioned by Ms. Neeva Pradhan. The first round, I will emphasize and present to you a few concepts arising from the studies on civil and corporate leadership. So these are things that many of you might even already have heard and studied, of course. And that is mostly drawing from the Western sort of corporate culture. What are the main findings there? And then after the break, in the second round, however, I want to go into the sort of the Eastern side, sort of our own tradition side of the tradition, where we do a deeper reflection on being more effective leader, while also trying to understand this notion of what it takes to be happy. Because, there's no point in being a highly successful business leader or whatever kind of leader you are, a social leader or whatever, but that you are perennially anxious or depressed or unhappy. You do want to take a handle on that, and so that goes back to this issue of leading and managing oneself. So hopefully there'll be a few takeaways for you. I want to start with this broad context because this is apparently a youth group. The notion of inheritance is probably always something that you are told about, which is basically that, oh, the youth will inherit everything. The youth will inherit the planet. The youth, have to take on this kind of stuff. And that's in the back of your minds. It's a kind of responsibility. It could be personal, familial, it could be national, it could be global. The youth as a group will be receiving this. There is no choice. We have to receive the planet. You have to receive the planet, and then you have to hand it over to another generation later on. There is no choice because, as we age, we have to do that, and then the older people die, and then the younger ones have to take on. But in this particular sense, I want you to think about inheritance not just of the what the youth will inherit, which is usually seen in physical and material terms, but also on the how of learning. What the how of how to live your life, or how to help others, and how to handle crisis. These types of things are also learned, and these things also are inherited. And by learning and becoming more effective and happy leaders of the future, the hope is that you would help to sustain, grow, and hand over the inheritance to the next generation. and not squander it, right? So this is very important to have that as background context. What are the characteristics of effective leaders? And I'm going to only focus on 4. And again, there are different ways of cutting it. But I wanted to give you some quick takeaways so that it becomes easy for you to say, oh, there are these 4. There are different ways of looking at it, and different people have written differently about it. But this is sort of, again, my take. Leaders are idealists, but with realism. So while they have clear vision and North Star that guides them where they wish to get to, they are very pragmatic and realistic. They work, sorry about that. They work positively, they positively work with what they have at the moment. That's the other thing. What do they have around them? What is the immediate thing that they need to attend to? They have a really good balance between short and long term. And this is important. Good leaders take a long-term view as well, because there's not a shortcut to doing things well. Sometimes there's always that sense amongst the youth that, oh, I want to quickly rise in my career, or I want to quickly make a lot of money, or I want to quickly do something. But many times there are no shortcuts. Look at anything around you in the world, from animals to plants to anything that you can learn from nature, and everything takes time. It has to be done organically. And leaders tend to, good leaders, effective leaders tend to understand that. It takes hard work. Good assessment of their strengths and interests. They tend to understand what they are good at and what their strengths are. If you look at Peter Drucker's work, he calls it feedback analysis, where basically what you see is that you need to focus on, you need to build your career and what you want to do on your strengths, not on your weaknesses, obviously. But many times we tend to forget that, and it's very important to do a very honest analysis of what you're good at. And these leaders effective leaders seem to have done that already. And many of you probably have done that already. And effective leaders are great prioritizers, because they're very realistic. They can't achieve everything all at once. Effective leaders are also disruptors. In order to reach their goals, they're willing to break from tradition conditionings and structures. They use reason to question their psychological, educational, sociocultural, political conditionings, and are able to think outside the usual default patterns, that we get used to many times. So as leaders, example, Henry Ford once said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, right? So clearly, that would have, left the world pretty different than it is today. They're willing to and actually encourage listening and learning, because there are always new ways to disrupt and new ways to break new ground. And unless you listen to others, you're not able to do that. And so there's a sense of intellectual arrogance that comes with people who don't want to listen. There is a sense of it's almost disabled. What Drucker calls it actually is disabling ignorance. That I know enough is one way in which you look at it. The other is I do not need to learn more because that's not an area that I'm an expert in, so therefore I don't need to learn. Either way, it hurts your ability to progress and to break new ground. And lastly, humility to learn throughout life, that you're always saying, I don't know enough and I want to learn more. They are adaptive. And by adaptive, we mean, there's a new concept that has come from these Harvard professors And I would certainly urge you to read up on adaptive leadership concept. It's a concept in which leaders do have vision, and they stand on their values, and then they move ahead with taking on responsibility. They focus on results and outcomes. They're not hung up on other things. They focus on the how of delivery as well. So it's not just delivery, only the end matters, but also on how you deliver matters. They trust others. There's a tremendous sense of trust in great leaders and effective leaders, because if you don't trust people around you and the people you interact with, you can't move much. A lot of things happens because others work and are motivated. One person cannot do everything, and they understand that. And most importantly, in this adaptive leadership concept, the idea is one of practice and action as opposed to position. There is a fundamental misconception sometimes, especially amongst the young, what is my title? When you try to enter a job or try to seek a promotion, there's a sense of, what is going to be my position? What's going to be my title? In the adaptive leadership concept, title is less important. It is more, what is my goal here? What am I expected to do? How can I make a difference? And so from that perspective, anybody can be an adaptive leader, and anyone can bring about change. You can be in middle level management. You can be even at the lower level. If you're able to motivate people around yourself and manage even your boss who is above and make him or her do things for you, you can deliver the results. And there are many examples of that, and I'm sure many of you are already adaptive leaders. I mean, I can think of so many examples in Nepal where people have gone out and done things, not waiting for the government or donor handouts, but carving their own path to doing things, social entrepreneurship and social NGOs and all sorts of interesting initiatives that you have initiated that I'm certainly aware of. That's adaptive leadership. And then the last one is empathy, that these leaders are ability to think and feel from others' perspectives. They disrupt and adapt, but they do it with empathy, right? So they motivate people rather than coerce them to deliver things. That's critically important. They have very high levels of emotional intelligence. Nowadays, it's called emotional quotient, like intelligence quotient, the people skills. Daniel Goleman has talked about this extensively, and I urge you to read his books if you haven't. And there is good news that EQ can be improved with practice. And I'll talk about that in the next segment after the break when we get to that. So these are the main 4 areas that effective leaders that I think embody. And these come out of a lot of research that people have done in the Western corporate settings.